Welcome, Molly, to this podcast with me, Alice Bowmaker, and I am really happy to have you because I feel that the work that we are both doing is similar in terms of wanting, helping women to kind of reconnect to more ancient practices and to help to connect to themselves on a deeper level. And that's basically what this podcast is about. And I know that you also have a background in performing, similar to me dancing and you as a singer. And there's a kind of, you're blending your singing practices into more healing modalities now. But I'm sure there's much more. If you would like to kind of share a little bit about what you offer now and but a bit about yourself as how you might describe yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Alice. It's such an honour to be here, and thank you so much for asking me along. My name is Molly, and I would kind of qualify myself as a holistic sound healer, therapist, practitioner. I'm still not sure which one of those words I feel best about. My background is very much in music, as you said. I grew up playing music. I've played music my whole life and did walk the path of a professional musician for a little while, but very quickly found out that perhaps wasn't quite aligned with my way of living, and I didn't really feel that comfortable in the music industry for many reasons, and so I started pursuing a more holistic path. And it was yoga that really led me into this world. I discovered yoga back in, it was maybe about 10 years ago. And I was practicing a lot. During my university years, I spent a lot of time doing gymnastics and cheerleading on cheer teams and stuff like that, which was really fun. But I did leave university with a very broken body. And so I reclaimed my yoga practice after leaving university, but in much more of a holistic way. And that really opened a door for me into the world of wellness and finding a more holistic path to tread. And over the years, I have returned to sound as my main practice. I still teach yoga and meditation, but sound is now my main offering. And I offer that in women's circles and spaces where women are invited to come and feel safe to be witnessed, to be with one another, and to reclaim ancient practices, to connect back with the earth and the magic of the earth, to connect back with the magic that's in each one of us. And so that's my path that I'm treading now. It's quite a unique blend of many different practices and the different sort of trainings that I've undergone, the different teachers that I've learned underneath, but it's growing and it's developing and it's unfolding as I go along, and it's just so beautiful to witness that kind of unraveling for myself, because I never really know which way I'm being led, and it's taught me to be really, really open to receiving what the universe has in store for me.
Yeah. It's interesting because it seems that we both were on a kind of more external path with the things such as, for me, dance, and you for music. And that's kind of, it's much more superficial in extent, but more an outward focus. And actually, we've both learned how to take those skills, those gifts, and turn them into more medicinal practices, because perhaps, I found that it, like, just focusing on the external for me in dance was not so good for me, like my mental health and my emotional health. And so transforming it into something of a more medicinal practice kind of flipped it on its head. Do you feel the similar thing in that sense?
Absolutely, yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, and I feel very, very similarly about reclaiming the unique gifts that we're all they're open for all of us, that I work a lot with the voice and encourage women to reclaim their authentic voice and to kind of rediscover what voice means to them. And voice is much more of an expansion of just, what comes out of your mouth. The voice can also encompass how we express ourselves, and that might be through movement or through painting or through art or through different forms of expression, that would all kind of gravitate towards or be encircled by the voice. And being able to reclaim that as a therapeutic or medicinal kind of practice, I feel is really empowering when, especially in our Western society, women's bodies are obviously extremely governed by the outside world and by the patriarchy. And so by reclaiming these gifts, we're taking back our power and saying that although it's beautiful to sit and listen to someone sing and, be a performance, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's not really what my work is trying to unpick. That instead, that we can have it all, that our voice can be a beautiful form of expression and performance and be available for other people to almost receive, but then can also be of therapeutic and medicinal value for ourselves. And the same goes, I assume you feel that same way about dance, and I feel that same way about, all of the forms of art, that it's my intrinsic belief that all people are dancers, are singers, are musicians, is in our bodies. This is medicine that is ours uniquely, and it's our sort of life's journey to reclaim that medicine for ourselves. And so I 100% agree with you on that one.
I think that what strikes me is that we can we can say logically and have said to us it's important to speak up and have your voice heard, and it's but it's different when you actually go to, say, a women's circle and you're like singing and you're using your voice medicinally, and it's you need to experience it for yourself, don't you? The release that happens when you allow yourself to sing and make noise and be heard. And you can understand it mentally that it's good, but you have to have that experience of it, don't you?
100%. Yeah, it's a bit of a journey as well, and it usually doesn't all happen in one go. When we're opening up the voice, we're really deconditioning potentially thousands of years of patriarchal standards, and thousands of years of like witch wounding, sister wounding, mother wounding, all of these kind of wounds that we're tending when we're opening ourselves vulnerably to be seen and to be heard and to be felt and received by others in our truth. And that can be such a frightening place to be. And so it can take a lot of time. And that's kind of my work, is to not put pressure on that point and instead to allow it to be a lifelong path that we walk. And I'm really kind of calling women into that path instead of, I think there's maybe a culture of wellness where we expect quick results all the time through everything. I think we expect that through our fitness journeys and through our mental health journeys, and these things take a lot of time. But what's beautiful is that I've seen such a shift, even just reflecting back on when I was a child, and kind of the standards and the way that we speak to one another, the way that we express one another and hold space for one another and allow one another to be vulnerable, that I feel that space has absolutely opened a lot more than it maybe ever has before. So there is very obvious work going on under the surface, but in the moment, it can take a little bit of time.
And it can trigger, I guess, emotions, can't it, as well? Like, as you're trying to express yourself, you will feel shame or sadness, and I think it's really important to observe that and to be aware that it's okay to feel those darker feelings, I think, in quotes, that, and to kind of use it as part of the process of clearing all of the kind of repression, is that it could be an emotional process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that question and for bringing that to light, because absolutely, yeah, it can be like a journey of many different feelings, and it's also welcome that when we can allow ourselves to feel the rage or the grief or the shame or the wounding, the vulnerability, that it's all a part of our human experience. And if we can step away and learn to observe that as it comes through, instead of maybe pushing it down or trying to change it or labeling it as bad, or all of these things that we do, then we can really allow that emotion to pass through us and then release from the body, which is such an incredibly powerful thing to do. The body keeps the score, and our emotions and our shame and our trauma, with a capital T and a lowercase t, is all crystallized in our cells. And so when we allow ourselves to really experience life fully, everything, all of it, unashamedly and without judgment, then we can experience really profound release.
And I don't know, have you heard of Gabor Mate?
I have, yes.
Because I'm reading his book, When the Body Says No, and he talks a lot about how obviously emotional repression causes dis-ease in the body and illness. And so that's why I feel like this type of work is so important now, because through this type of work that you're doing, we can start to release and understand some emotion that we have processed and probably don't even know that we have stuck in the body, which would then later maybe manifest into something serious in physical ailment. So yeah, it's, as I learn more about it, the more I'm like, no, this is really important stuff.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful thing to bring to light. It's so apparent how, especially, the majority, I would say, the majority of men have been conditioned to, not be able to feel, not experience feeling. And, men have been just as wounded by the patriarchy as women have, and as other gendered people have. And if in some cases, perhaps even more, because men really aren't given the opportunity to feel anything. And so all of that is then stored, because we all experience life, and life isn't necessarily a smooth ride. And yeah, if we don't allow ourselves to experience, then we push it down, we push it in. And as Gabor Mate really beautifully says, then that becomes dis-ease in the body, which obviously is disease, and over time that can cause inflammation, and can lead to other problems in the future with our health. And so emotional freedom is really important, I feel, to having a general sense of wellness and health and happiness.
Okay, so I have a question for you. Who was the most, this is a hard one, who is the most important teacher for you along your journey?
Thank you for that question. Oh, a beautiful question. There's so many that come through for me. Actually, the teacher that popped up in my sort of that first popped up for me is Cacao, Mother Cacao. So Cacao, for anyone who isn't aware, is a beautiful plant medicine from Mesoamerica. It's kept by the Mayan peoples, and is now such a universal medicine. She's a really beautiful medicine for the heart, and helps us to peel back the layers of anything that we may not need, or anything that's in the way of our truth, so that we can live in a more aligned way. And I have come to practice cacao ceremony and offer cacao ceremony out to other people, other women. And cacao has definitely been one of my primary teachers. I started drinking cacao every day as a kind of non-official dayasha, maybe 3 years ago. She just kind of discovered me, and I didn't really know what to do with her, or why she had appeared in my life, or what my place was in all of that. But after drinking cacao every day for about 3 years, I can look back and just notice just the immense amount of shifting that's gone on in my psyche and in my subconscious, and the elevation and the awakening that I've gone through over the last few years. I hesitate with the sort of phrase spiritual awakening because I think it invokes an idea of this kind of grand ascending into enlightenment, and that's not at all what I'm trying to claim for myself. But I definitely feel that Cacao has helped to shift things, stuff, goo, stickiness out of my psyche, and is this really gentle feed, this drip feed of self-love into the heart that is experienced very profoundly but over a long period of time, which I find very, very helpful in a process of like integrating what comes through. Other plant medicines can also be extremely profound and extremely helpful, but are much stronger in the initial moment, and so require more kind of unpicking of everything that's come through, whereas Cacao, the integration process happens as you move along. And so I really suggest to everybody that's going to watch this or listen to this to get yourself some ceremonial cacao, some really high-grade ceremonial cacao. She's been my best friend and my best teacher over the last few years. But I'd also love to mention my sound healing teachers, Cherubella and Tim Wheater, who have been just had a profound impact on my life. And so many amazing folks that I've met along the way, and also myself. I feel that we're always our greatest teacher. The beautiful mantra that I often sing in my sound classes and sound baths, Om Namo Gurudev Namo, which means I bow to my inner wisdom. And I feel that is such a profound mantra for our daily lives now in the West, as we often give our power away, as we've seen sort of through the 60s all the way to the noughties, this kind of guru culture that has been a really terrible impact on a lot of people, and ultimately our best teacher is always ourselves.
And that's so empowering, isn't it? But that's not the message that a lot of people want us to know. But we do have, and it sounds cliche, but we do have all of the answers inside of us. So I was going to mention about just going back to Cacao, because I came to your amazing women's circle and actually wanted to say how I felt just so uplifted for like even just the whole week afterwards. That like it was something you did was like just really powerful in there. And you mentioned about having a bit of cacao every day and how that helped to improve your relationship with your body as well. So it made me think, having myself been through issues with my body in terms of I had an eating disorder, how it could also be a really powerful medicine to help just to support people along the way.
Yeah, I'm super passionate about spreading the message of cacao, and have experienced a similar past to you, Alice, in the way that I've had many struggles with eating and body dysmorphia that are still very much ongoing. The wounds are always there, and the patriarchal conditioning that we live under is not going to give up easily and allow women to reclaim the sanctity of their own bodies and their softness. And we are a reflection of the earth, and the earth is soft and strong and all of it. And so my process of learning how to re-love myself and love my body is absolutely ongoing still. But cacao has been such a pivotal support for me in that journey, and has offered me a way of finding a moment of mindfulness for myself every day as I kind of sit with my cacao, perhaps in the morning, and I might draw a card, an oracle card, some wisdom for the day, or I might spend some time journaling or just light a candle and meditate and drink the cacao. And during that time, as the medicine works on my heart, then I really spend that time just feeling whatever's there. And sometimes it's, grief, sometimes it's joy and gratitude. And cacao has been my way into acceptance and way into sort of permission in order to experience all of that without judgment. And I think you know, these journeys that we're walking on, disordered eating is so common amongst, well, many different types of people, but especially younger women. And it breaks my heart because that was me. And although I do still struggle sometimes with poor brain health or mental health, then I really do rely or lean on my cacao medicine to bring me to that sense of mindfulness. And although the medicine is so supportive, the power and all of that change is coming from me. It's not coming from the medicine. And so I want to be clear about promoting cacao. It's not necessarily like similar to a pharmaceutical drugs. Say you were taking something to support mental health, it wouldn't be in replacement to that. Cacao brings us back to ourselves, and then we do the work to kind of unpick, and it's a slow process, and she's really taught me patience with that. So my journey is ongoing, I would say, and as I grow older as well, and away from the body type of the maiden, that even when I was in the body type of the maiden, then I wouldn't have necessarily said that I felt connected and in love with my body at all. But as I grow older and away from the maiden and into the mother, what I have noticed a few things about myself is I'm quite self-punishing about that, but also that I'm becoming more invisible into patriarchy, which I really enjoy. And and so I'm quite excited to get to kind of like cronehood and be totally invisible and totally empowered. So age for me is just bringing more and more joy. So I'm excited to tread that path.
Yeah, and we learn such amazing, like, just so much of you said there I could like reflect on, and like you not being at the end of your journey is good, because as you go along the journey you learn more wisdom, which then you have to share. So it's like drip feed of stuff to share with other people, and so we kind of don't really want to be at the end of our journey yet, do we? Because as we get older, we're going to have more and more to share. It sounds you're ready to be in the crone. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the same. I think I was like, even 10 years ago when I first started kind of shifting over to more healing work and, away from dancing, I was like ready to be the wise woman. And then I was like, yeah, you're still young. You need a bit more time. I kind of was inspired by your saying about having a bit of cacao every day, and I was trying to do what I'm going to try to do each month is in the second half of my cycle, the week before my period, is to have cacao, because I really struggle with moods and hormonal imbalances. So I was like, maybe this can just like soften all the emotions that come up, or just support me to do it, and rather than perhaps doing it all month, just like looking at how it would be in kind of a cyclical perspective.
That's such a beautiful thing to give to yourself, such an amazing gift and way of connecting back to our kind of cyclic nature as women. We are perhaps one of the only mammals on the whole planet that has a lunar cycle that is almost exactly aligned with the lunar cycle. And so as women, we are completely and utterly like divine and sacred in that way, that we are a reflection of nature. And there's a beautiful incantation, one of the oldest incantations that we have, that was inscribed on an ancient stone: as above, so below, as within, so without. And this incantation more or less means, as above, so below. What we see reflected in the heavens, what is divine, is also presented here on earth. And then as within, so without. Our inner world is reflected in the world that we are existing in outside, and vice versa, as in we create our experiences. And we're so in tune, and we can be so in tune with that cyclic nature of things. And I feel that is a really beautiful gift to offer yourself every month. I also do something similar. I drink cacao every day, but I will write in my journal for each day of the month, and I keep a tracker on my cycle to kind of see where I am and reflect. And it's amazing to see how the kind of tides ebb and flow, and it gives me more permission to be soft with myself. Especially on the first day of my bleed, I used to be very much go, go, go all the time. And I'm learning to be less like that. I would say that the people who love me best probably still see that in me. But I very much take the first day of my bleed every single month to do absolutely nothing. And if I'm due to be working, I will not work, and I rest. And this is wisdom that I was offered from one of the indigenous women of Mesoamerica. And she said that one of the greatest tragedies of humanity is that women have stopped offering their menstrual blood to the earth. And the belief in that culture is that the lack of menstrual blood being offered back into the earth is causing natural disasters. And so I think more reflectively on this in like a metaphysical kind of discussion, then we can see how that wisdom is probably reflecting how disconnected we are from the earth, and that the earth is out of touch with us and we are out of touch with her. And just by communing in this way and coming to rest on perhaps the first day of our bleed in some way, if we can, maybe just a moment of meditation if that's all the time that you have, but to really give ourselves these moments of life, death and rebirth as we move through the cycles of life. And that to me is living more in alignment with the feminine as opposed to the masculine, which is like rah, 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 go, go, go all the time. Which can be exhausting, especially to those of us that have cycles and have uteruses and periods, that that isn't really the way in which our bodies would like to live.
No. And like, kind of basically, we are come from this earth, and so why would we not naturally be cyclical if that is what everybody knows that we have seasons and, you know, cycle. So it's like you break it down like that, and of course we would work just like that. But we're, like you said, we're so disconnected to even not even think we're human anymore, and we're like robots. We're like, how did that work? But it's, and even with offering your like menstrual blood to the earth, again, like if we're from this earth, then it's sounds like an amazing way to reconnect and ground. But there's so much stigma around it that even just saying that people wouldn't get. So there's a lot to unpack around a discussion, like you said, and a lot to unpack around it to kind of understand the essence of what that's about.
And it's absolutely stigmatized and seen as like unclean or perhaps something that might be dirty. You know, if this is something that anyone who's listening to this, if you're interested in perhaps taking those first steps but you feel a little shy, or that you're not sure, then a really nice way is actually just to offer I disappeared. There I am. Is to offer your menstrual blood to perhaps one of your house plants, if you have one, and just as a little ritual for yourself to begin with. If it's too much to maybe go outside and kneel on the earth and offer the blood to a tree or to Mother Earth, then offering your blood perhaps to a house plant. And this was actually a tip that was given to me by a gardener. She said that there is no better fertilizer than a woman's menstrual blood, mixed with lots of water. It's a fantastic fertilizer. So you'll also be offering your houseplants the gift of life, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, and like, even if we look at it in terms of, it comes from our body, and, you know, it's used to potentially to create life. And so seeing it as dirty, like you said, or disgusting, that indicates also some sense of self-rejection and self-shame that's been put upon us, which, like you've said, this comes from lifetimes of programming and societal. So it's also, I think, really important to just reflect on if that is our initial reaction, or that's disgusting or dirty. But that's part of you. So why
yes, it's come from like many thousands of years of the rejection of all of the qualities that create the feminine. And, you know, in the feminine, then it's not necessarily just folks who have a female body or experience. The feminine is the qualities that are rejected also in men, you know, and qualities that would be considered maybe a little softer, like softness, caring, qualities, and connecting and slowing down and being still. All of those, that's all a part of the feminine. And unfortunately, our world and our society is very, very much based in the masculine, which means that all of the qualities of the feminine have been rejected, and thus women have been rejected. And some folks say that this goes back to kind of just after Neolithic times, when the goddess cultures and those who were living in communion and in cycles with the earth were suddenly wiped out by an influx of kind of patriarchal religion, in this way that humanity began to grow and therefore needed to feel that they could dominate nature in order to survive. And nature is a reflection of the feminine, or we are a reflection of nature as women, and therefore we were also included in that oppression. And over years, as we have pushed nature down, we've also pushed the feminine and pushed women down, and that all the qualities that are associated with femininity or with the feminine have also been pushed away, which means that menstrual blood and anything to do with our natural cycles, which, I mean, half the population of the planet encounter, then it seems a little if our first reaction is, oh my gosh, that feels quite gross or disgusting, then that might be something that is worth paying attention to and perhaps just shining a light on.
Yeah. And because I believe so much in cyclical living and in cycles, I do think that we will cycle round back into, which you can always see, like the feminine rising again. Hopefully into this balance between obviously women and men, because it's not about us just kind of dominating men. But I do believe that it is part of a massive cycle of some sort of growth of humanity, but hopefully that we will come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel anything like that?
On that, and echo that totally. Yeah. That there's been many prophecies made by indigenous cultures over the years. The most famous of which is the eagle and the condor prophecy, which was a Native American prophecy made in the 1490s. And this prophecy spoke of how for the 500 years after the 1490s, so that would take us to about the 1990s, there would be a period of time in humanity where the eagle, which represents the global north, which represents the masculine, would dominate the sky and would nearly push the condor out of the sky completely. But then after the 1990s, there would be a following 500 years where the condor would be able to rise and would be able to fly in union with the eagle in the sky. And this is a really beautiful reflection of what you were just saying, that the rising of the feminine is absolutely not about women dominating men. That is patriarchy again. Patriarchy is an energetic imbalance. It's not really to do with men dominating women. That's just how it's presented itself in our current society. Women dominating men would again just be patriarchy, and in fact the rising feminine will lead to more of a matrifocal way of living, which is cyclic living, and for all of us to be able to be free. The prophecy predicts that from the 1990s, 500 years of humanity, and at the end of that 500 years will be in the age of Aquarius, which was predicted to be kind of like a global ascension of all humanity, where we can all live in peace and in harmony. So fingers crossed, although I probably won't be here by then. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, perhaps I'll be here in a different form.
So one kind of final thing to ask you is, what does self-love mean to you? Because I know it's said in, some ways, you might have a different perspective on it, as does everybody else.
Oh, thank you for that question. I feel that self-love is something that is evolving for me all the time. And to me, at the moment, it means permission for all of it. It means not turning away from the shadows. It means not living a life that is bypassing in any way. So that would be, doing the gritty stuff, giving permission for myself to rest and to not always be on the go. Self-love would be acceptance, even when it feels painful, of myself and also of others and of our society, that it's very easy to allow the rage to kind of take over and let it be everything. But self-love to me means allowing that to be felt, but then to be passed through, and to be a witness to all of it without judgment. And so I think self-love for me is something that is always evolving and growing, and my perception of what that means is always changing. But yeah, I feel self-love is living a life that you're completely enchanted by, and that wouldn't necessarily be all like bubble baths and ice cream on the sofa, although those things are totally and utterly wonderful too. But it would be the mix of all of it, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the shadow, the masculine and the feminine. And I think self-love is coming into communion with that in a sense of balance, and it's a work in progress.
And actually, I have one more question, which is, do you have any rituals, whether they're kind of flexible or quite strict, that you include on a daily or weekly practice that you think are really helpful, that you might recommend?
So I sit with Cacao every day, and that's a really important ritual for me. I love to draw oracle cards, maybe just one oracle card a day, and use that as a moment of checking in and guidance and a feeling of trust and connection to the universe. I love to sit and write music, so I'll play my piano or my guitar, or I'll sit in front of the harmonium and play and sing and chant. Yoga is a ritual for me. That's an everyday practice. Finding moments of meditation, even if it's just a walking meditation, or if you're on the train or walking through the park, to take your earphones out and be present with everything that is, instead of kind of blocking ourselves into our own world. And all of these practices are definitely sort of like weekly for me, or sometimes even daily. And then on a monthly basis, I honor the moon, so the new and the full moon. And then I honor the Sabbats as well. So I honor the traditional pagan Sabbats, which is something that has been growing within my family tradition for quite a long time. So we honor all of the 8 pagan Sabbats every year. And that keeps us in tune with the turning of the Great Wheel. And if anyone who wants more information on that, please feel free to pop over to my website. I've written blog posts, I think, on nearly all of the Sabbats now, so you can find some info over there.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna look at that, because I'm kind of, it's slowly, I don't know if you find that you do this stuff first kind of as an interest, and also feel like, oh, this is something maybe I should do, and then suddenly I feel like I just need to do it. In a sense, it becomes more ingrained into like who you are. It lands slightly deeper. It strikes me as well that like something I heard, which was quite interesting, is it's important to have a practice or a ritual that can breathe, so that sometimes it's slightly longer and sometimes it's slightly shorter, but it's always there. And
absolutely, I echo that.
Space around it.
Yeah, my rituals probably change in the nature of them every day, and I love to be able to let them breathe. And sometimes I'll take my tuning fork, 111 hertz, and I'll just tap that as I wake up if I'm rushing out in the morning, and just kind of just take a moment to center and breathe. And that might be what I do in the morning. So absolutely, leave space to breathe. And there's so many different ideas of what is perfect out there for honoring the moons and the Sabbats and all of these. And my advice would be to just do what feels intuitively right for you, and honor whatever you feel like honoring in your own way, and to not be intimidated by any information that says otherwise.
Yes, because we are our own best teachers, and that's what we have to. And do you have anything coming up that you could share of kind of any workshops or retreats, courses that you're
absolutely.
doing that people might want to join?
Regular workshops around voice and somatics in East London. The next one coming up is on Sunday, and that is a really beautiful experience. It's a women's circle, and each one is unique. So there'll be a unique constellation of women present. We'll drink cacao, we share, we might move, we sing, we breathe, we dance, all of it. And I'm also running retreats over the summer.
Amazing.
So I have a couple more spots left on my summer solstice retreat and a few spots left on my April retreat coming up as well. So if you want any information on those, just head over to my website.
Amazing. And I'll put also the links somewhere below.
Thank you so much, Alice.
To join. Great. My pleasure, and thank you for joining. It's been so good to hear everything you say, and it's lovely to kind of, I don't know, to feel that as a nice resonance in terms of perspective and things like that. It's kind of
there's some big concepts in there. So if anyone who's watching this, you can watch it a few times and let them sink in.
Yeah. And reach out if you have any questions. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
We can do this again another time.